Hi everyone, and welcome to my presentation looking at the use and implementation of development programs within staff's pathway. Again, thank you to the FMPA and to Kevin Paxton for inviting me to do this talk today as well. Again, it's something that I've never really talked about. It just happened naturally as part of like the working environments I've been in. So it's really nice to share like some of the case studies and thoughts of what we found successful within implementing kind of development pathways for staff, even whether that be young staff, even senior staff as well in different roles, and ultimately how we can help support that as well. So, kind of like as with anything, it's always good to start with a question. Ultimately, to understand where the problems, not necessarily the problems are, but where the potential areas are to go and help develop, not just for the individual, but for the organization. Because ultimately, like the biggest interest for organizations are to get the most out of like the athletes and the staff. Like all their key kind of investments that they make with regards to staffing, whether that be players or to the multidisciplinary team, is ultimately like ensuring that they get the, as a business sense, are we getting value for money? How do we get more value for our money? And that's ultimately the top level. So when we think about aligning the questions and asking the key stakeholders what they're asking, it's important to remember who you're speaking to. What is the responsibility of that organization to provide for that person? But ultimately, it's about how can we help enhance that person's experience of that given position as well. It's all well and good being able to just turn up each day, do a job, go home, 9 to 5. But realistically, like, is that the best experience that we can give to someone? And part of like the questions I used to ask is how can I help support everyone within the multidisciplinary team? Because if everyone's happy, if everyone's in a good place, that ultimately then reflects onto the playing staff within a football environment, especially. But then we can go one step further and say, well, actually, if everyone's happy, if we're all working in good cohesion, if we're all working in good harmony, then that reflects well to the players, which then hopefully reflects better to what they're doing on the pitch as well. And so when we think about the multidisciplinary team and who is there as well, it's got a range of different categories. It was interesting one because like within most of our roles, we always talk about the players and where the players fit into the bigger picture, aka so send players at the center of the model, followed by, well, what kind of metrics or what kind of analysis are we doing on them to really enhance like our understanding of them? But really, to take a step back from that, who are we asking to do those analyses and who are we asking to work with the players? And how can we help them to become better? Whether that be from recruitment strategies about how do we get the best people in the building, but also at the same time, there's going to be different levels of recruitment within different programs as well, whether that be in a football club, whether that be in a commercial organization. There's different ways to kind of look at it as well. And when you think about the model here, there's a wide variety of different key stakeholders that are relevant into this conversation as well. So without going into too much detail on each one of them, and you're probably going to think, why am I showing this player development pathway? Is that ultimately like the way I kind of look at it, and this is again Rodri Lloyd's like long-term athletic development pathway from 2015. But it's the reason why I bring this up. It's like the similar contrast to me as to what is being presented here as to what we kind of can start to think about for our development of staff, development of professional development opportunities, whereby from a practitioner's perspective, what age of athlete are you working with? What's the interest that you're dealing with? Have you got different interests at different phases of your career? So if you're just a recent graduate looking to try and get an internship compared to actually being a 10, 20-year professional looking to just do a little bit more personal development to try and improve yourself, there's going to be different elements of that pathway that creep in at different points as well. And so what we'll do kind of thing as part of this, because I don't think it's I don't think it should be just limited to thinking, right, in order to enhance staff's opportunity, let's just work downwards. And again, from my personal experience right now, dealing with like board members, founders, and so on, there's people that we could focus on. But for the purpose of this talk, I'm just focusing on the ones highlighted back. So anything from heads of medicals, physios, performance staff, sports scientists, SSD coaches, nutritionists, performance analysts, and data scientists as well. And while it's ultimately different areas of expertise within my knowledge space, for example, like I might have a little bit of knowledge in these areas. What I really wanted to dive into is try to help the people whenever anyone approached me, and ultimately, what are the environments that we can put them in to really strive and not just survive, but actually thrive within environments as well. So it's making sure the right people around them. So coming back to this, and again, it's the same pathway. The only difference, obviously, being the female one, is when you think to the current evolution within youth development within recent years. I saw recently there was the 10-year anniversary of the elite player performance pathway. This has probably become of more interest to those working within youth development, but at the same time, for me as a practitioner, it's been a really useful model to actually help understand not what is relevant just to the athlete, but what's relevant to us as practitioners to be able to develop practitioners to help support this pathway as well. And whether that be in the male or the female game, domestic or international, or now if it's in that commercial space, what's your audience that you're dealing with? How can you learn and develop to get a better understanding of that audience to ultimately promote what we feel is the right value to them? So again, for example, early this morning, working with a first year apprentice, senior pro, all at different stages of their careers, some early youth pro, and then an elder professional football player. And it's ultimately speaking to them about different stages of career, and you deal with them as an individual and as a person. And that's part of our practice with athletes and who we deal with, but actually it should be part of our practice when we're dealing with staff as well. So what are the different kind of staffs that we actually deal with, and what are they interested in to help develop the performance? Now, and I'll go into it a little bit more in detail, I actually WhatsApped one of our postgraduate research groups with some of our students and some of the staff that we've had along the pathway. And ultimately, what are the common areas of interest to staff to help improve their own performance, or what do they want to learn to develop further? And they all tend to evolve around the same kind of ethos. So how can I help improve someone's performance? Reducing injury risk, identifying talent, coach development, aka own development within a specific area. Then how can I do something different? How can I create new knowledge? How can I challenge myself as well? And ultimately, what kind of our area of interest is when we're but when we're working with these staff in order to help develop them, where does it fit into the bigger jigsaw? At the end of the day, we've got to, if it's again looking for budget to send them on a specific course, for example, how do we promote that to the relevant key stakeholders to get that funding in place as well? And ultimately, it's being able to put this massive jigsaw in one place. Now, again, what are the main motivations or objectives behind doing professional development? Ultimately, employment, increasing knowledge, and happiness. And something that resonated with me when I was like doing some of the research behind this presentation is that we're in a stage now and whereby everyone wants to get to employment, whether that be in professional sport, ideally. Some people do, as some people listening to this might agree with, might disagree with. Some people have become tracksuit chasers, whereby they want a job because they feel as though they should be working in professional sport because that's where everyone wants to be. There's different pathways to getting employment in that, and ultimately it's how do we help best support them? What are the areas to increase that knowledge as well? and how do we then match that to their motivations? And ultimately, everyone wants to be happy. The main reason we set out to do a certain role is because we think it will bring us happiness. It's the role that we believe will provide us joy within our day-to-day work. We're very privileged within this kind of environment, is that our day-to-day job actually doesn't feel like a day-to-day job. You get to socialize with people, you get to network with people, and you get to help people. And I think that's ultimately, if someone meets those requirements, that's it. But we've got to remember to marry them all up as well. And like, I promise you, I don't read a lot of comic books and stuff like that. And I did find this through a Google search of when I was trying to look for different career advice as well. But ultimately, it's like we need to remember to merge all three together as and where we can. It's not just about providing advice on one thing and then going, oh, yeah, like you didn't tell me you wanted to be happy. Because again, we all know kind of the work ethic required, especially in professional football, because this is the FMPA and we're focused on football at the minute. When you're working like 9 to 8 to 12-hour days, some days away for 2 weeks on training camps, sometimes home and away games. If you're in an away game 3 times a week, traveling far, it becomes tough. And it's being realistic with the expectations to those that you're trying to support within their development. And while again, happiness within the workplace might mean you have to reduce happiness within the personal life, it shouldn't. It's ultimately about getting that balance right. And especially within early stage career individuals, I found that like that kind of balance is what they have to manage the most as well. And ultimately, sometimes we get it right, get it wrong. I personally, for me, I got it wrong when I was younger, and I've learned that as I've developed and older, and I still got a lot to learn and develop. But these are just some of the learnings and development pathways that we've gone along the way with. And kind of like where this focus comes onto this busy slide with a lot of images and stuff like that is for those different key stakeholders or those different staff within the multidisciplinary team that we highlighted area. There's a few different reasons for wanting to focus on different areas. And to kind of like give some examples, like, so again, the evolution of the triple P within football, we have staff that not just want to go through UKCA and BASES accreditation now. They need to as part of their job roles in order to, one, either keep the jobs, two, to be able to be employed in an academy environment somewhere else. So it gives us a minimum standard requirement as well. And so trying to help people understand the requirements and gain that knowledge base, I'm fortunate to be supervising three or four supervised experience, but as well as direct applications to BASES, and each one has a different work ethic towards what they're doing, because there's different things in life for them that will take priority. And so when you're working in a football club and they turn around and say, right, you need to have this or be working towards it very soon, otherwise you're going to be out of a job, then we need to be motivated to do it. If you've got someone that's still learning, they're in a job that they're comfortable with, they're doing this because they want to learn and develop something, then you set different goals and criteria along the way. And we all preach or probably utilize like smarter targets and smarter goals at some points without realizing it. And there's probably some better acronyms than that nowadays to work towards it. But everyone goes, right, well, how do we gain success? What's the best way to do it? How do we measure it as well? And so when you think of like the UKCA, it's understanding what's the best ways to go to workshops, learn what's required for my accreditation. So in order to pass my accreditation as well, how do I maintain my CPD credits? And those two kind of like fit together, whereby there's a pathway of learning that's ultimately like written by the organizations to help you develop and get those accreditations. And for the performance analysis, obviously there's the International Society of Performance Analysis of Sport that is developing. But people might want to take a different pathway. If you've done UKC and BASES and you've got your masters and you've got your PhD, what's the next pathway? Like we're trying to separate now. Like, is someone just trying to? We don't just want someone to be collecting certificates and accreditations to tick a box. It's how can we help enrich that person's experience, and asking what motivates them, what helps them to get that drive. And so coming across, we've got some research outputs. People want to publish research to gain more knowledge. And the embedded kind of PhD models that we had at Hull, and a really nice program. And I've got to thank Chris Towson and Grant Apps for helping set that up at the University of Hull at the time. Allows like those kind of development pathways. Again, it's a different field, it's more academic, and it's written in there. And even to the point of setting internal kind of projects, whereby it might be, okay, go design these, try and build something that will engage the multidisciplinary team, whether that be coaches, sports science, research into this new field. So one of our master students, Josh Maris, as performance analysis, go generate some training technical reports, and he did a great job of trying to get insights onto that. And then you work with performance analysis in sports science department. How can you guys work together? Well, actually, how can we create a automatic or a quickly, easily processed drill library that we can look at in and out of session stats to help inform our rehab process as well? And even to the point of, and again, there might be a few last at this, probably not, like I don't often get last, to be honest with you, but the whole world of statistics, there's a lot of people, again, going to do masters, going to do different areas that are out of the comfort zone. And just being able to help with people's statistical analysis and support them within that as well is just something. There's two ways to either approach it. One, you either do it or you try and hold someone's hand and take them through that journey. I'll always try that, teach someone and try and get them to do it. But again, depending on the key stakeholder, depending on the time available to them, is obviously being able to help that individual as well. And so one of the little tasks that I'd like try and set myself and some of the students, again, this is something that we did, was looking at it as a continuum for personal development. So we have these people who are like more academically research focused, but then we've got people that want to develop themselves within the applied world as a practitioner. And so again, as sports science, as physiotherapists, as medical departments are all enjoying these quadrants, especially around the hamstring, which we won't go on in too much detail on this, but where does an individual sit on this continuum? How can this help them develop, and also what would it then allow us to target for their development in the future? And so again, I thank everyone on this slide, and there are more as well who are on the slide, but these have all either in some way collaborated, because I think even supporting students, even supporting like someone's development pathway, it's a collaboration. They don't have to just nod their head and say yes to everything they do. If anything, if I've got someone that just nods their head and says yes to everything that we're doing, I probably won't end up working with that person, because it's got to be a two-way conversation to help collaborate with as well. And so when I asked this big group, and again, there's a variety of lecturers on here, through to applied sports scientists, through to lecturers, nutritionists, who else got data scientists, like there's a whole heap of different experience as well. So some are now in the later stages or 5 to 10 year kind of stage of their career. Some are beyond that. Some are still early career practitioners. Some are early career researchers as well. And so we kind of asked them to place themselves in here. And again, these are just a few from the responses that I got. But really, and again, there's no right or wrong within this. And some of these will argue, oh, it could be a little bit to the right, it could be a little bit to the left. And wherever they are positioned, I think everyone would ideally like to be in this top right hand corner, where there is the applied interest, there's the interest within the academia setting. Because ultimately, like most of the people we tend to focus or work with, the ones that want to be better on both sides, because it helps them with a better understanding of how to support the end user at the end of the day, whether that be athletes or themselves, to provide a better service. And so there's nothing wrong with being in either of the other two corners. And interestingly, no one put themselves in this area, which probably showcases that there's not going to be many people in this area who would say, I'm not interested in research and I'm not interested in applied work, which is always a good start because they are in there. Motivation to probably help them becomes lower for me as well. So probably like one of the more interesting ones is Ben, who gave me permission to speak about his team. When he first started with us at Hull, so his PhD was looking at virtual reality within football. And he started off like really interested in applied work. Again, was just above like kind of the middle line for like academia, but was probably more interested in like the application of it and actually work with players getting in the gym. To now 3 years later, after he's coming towards the end of his PhD and he's moved from like the internship position to embedded PhD student model at Hull. He's now the head of sports research at Resel, which is a virtual reality company. He's probably gained a greater interest in that academic side of things because of the work he's had done and again published research through some of his supervisors as well. So it's not just a case of thinking that one size fits all, as we say with players. It's a case of with the staff and their personal development journeys, it's going to be constantly changing as well as they develop and get greater interest as well. So thank you for listening, first of all. And I suppose just some reflections, and because as part of the process that I deal with all those people that I showed and others, it's about reflecting on your practices. So what is the bigger question? How does the person see themselves in that bigger picture? What are the goals, aspirations, motivations, where they want to be? And how can we as senior staff, supervisors, mentors support their pathway as well? And I think they're the biggest reflection for me, even bringing the presentation together. It was a reflection on the journeys that I've hopefully supported those take on. Like, and again, the people that put the content together, like the FMPA, like Bases, like UKSA, to name a few, they're all part of that bigger picture as well. So thank you to all of them for putting the good content in that allows us to provide that information to the different students, staff that we're helping support on that education pathway. Thank you again to the FMPA and Kev Paxton for the invite. My details are here on screen if anyone wants to get in touch and discuss further as well. But thank you very much.